During pretty much every immigration debate that I've seen here in Britain, both sides, both in favour and opposed immigration, always say that Britain has always been a tolerant nation and accepting of immigrants, but this just isn't the case. For instance, we'll start in 1517. In London, a man named Dr. Bell, during a sermon, said that all Englishmen should cherish and defend themselves, and this encouraged thousands of Englishmen to attack foreigners. Now, most of these foreigners were French, but there were also Dutch, Italian and Jewish immigrants attacked as well. Now this was, if you want to look it up, Evil May Day, and it eventually stopped when Thomas More intervened, and only a handful of the thousands of rioters were prosecuted, despite a lot of foreigners, although we don't know how many, were killed. But foreigners, even 30 years after the event, still had some sort of ill feeling towards foreigners. This is apparent in the Hall's Chronicles, where the chronicler said that foreigners within the city of London boasted that they had special privileges. Fast forward to the Elizabethan age, and there was a growing number of black people within London. Now there's a couple of reasons for this. One is that there was no tax on slaves, so a lot were being imported and many were servants, but also there were a lot of privateers capturing Spanish ships and the slaves on board. But anyway, Elizabeth wasn't keen on the growing number of black people, or black Moors as she called them, in London, and it's not exactly known why. It might be religious or racial, we don't really know. But she did commission a merchant to go out and expel all the foreigners from London and send them to Iberia. But there's also been a hatred of other types of British people. For instance, in 1667, Samuel Pepys recorded that he saw crowds of people hanging effigies of Welshmen in the streets of London, and in the 1780s there were the Gordon Riots. Now these were huge riots against Catholics, so anti-Catholic riots. About 280 or so people, I think, were killed, and hundreds of buildings were set ablaze. But I'll skip ahead until 1902, and that's when the British Brothers League was formed. Now, they were opposed to the destitute foreigners, as they called them, but these were just the new wave of immigrants coming in from Eastern Europe, essentially, mainly Russia. Now, they wanted England to be for the English, as they said at their number of mass rallies that they had across mainly London, and they potentially had tens of thousands of members, and in part helped pass the Aliens Act of 1905, so in that regard they were somewhat successful, but over time they gradually became more anti-Semitic. Then, after World War I, there were numerous sort of anti-foreign riots, let's call them, but one interesting one, I won't go too far in, is the Battle of Bow Street. Now this is interesting because it saw British police fighting a couple thousand Australian, American and Canadian servicemen. There was some tension between these nationalities after the war, but I suggest you look into it. That's the Battle of Bow Street, just to remind you. But keeping in the immediate aftermath of World War I, there were numerous riots that occurred all across the country. But to set the scene a little bit, during World War I, of course, a lot of British men went to go fight abroad, and this created a labour shortage. So particularly the port cities, they imported labour from across the world. So when the British servicemen came back, they found, well, some of them had found that their job had gone, and of course this created resentment between the two groups. So in cities like London, Liverpool, South Shields and Cardiff, like major port areas, there were huge riots when locals attacked foreign communities. Otherwise, of course, you had the British Union of Fascists, who sort of emerged in the 30s, and in 1936 they fought the Battle of Cable Street, as it's been called, against trade union groups and socialists, which the fascists lost. But fascism survived in one form or another, especially with the formation of the League of Ex-Servicemen, and today you've got things like Combat 18. And in terms of racial riots, in recent memory I would say the largest probably was the Brixton riots in 1981, which saw the black community fighting with the police, largely.